Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. It's Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. Chapter 28. The next morning at 8 o'clock, the security committee was at the gate. They walked across and down the road a few yards and then stepped over the old fence. The hill was only 20 or 25 feet tall and had been cut through about halfway up one side to allow for the road. They walked up to the top and looked both directions. You could see quite a long way in both directions. It would be easy to spot a car from at least a mile up here. The gate was about 75 yards away, and this spot gave a commanding view of the entrance to the subdivision. Susan asked Gunny if he wanted a foxhole on top for the lookout. He told her it would be better to move it off of the top and toward the road a little bit. He explained that it would be too easy to spot someone on the top. But if the observation post was moved down so there was something behind the lookouts, it made them much less visible. He explained to her that they wanted to camouflage the OP as much as possible. The committee members all saw the wisdom in this, and Mark saw how having a guard or two in this position could not only give them some advanced warning of danger, but also give them a tactical asset in case of an attack on the gate. Ted raised the concern that this property didn't belong to them. The members considered that for a moment, but as far as anyone knew, no one had lived here for at least 20 years. If the owners showed up, they could work out a deal with them. Until that happened, no one really saw a reason not to build the OP. All of the volunteers had been assigned to George for the day, but Susan said that they could get started in the morning. She asked Gunny if he wanted to supervise the digging of this hole himself, and he agreed to do that. On the way back, Mark talked to Chaparro about David, and he agreed to give him a try. Mark mentioned that he and Gunny were going to the grocery store today, and Susan asked if she could go with them. Mark told her to be at the house by 9:30. When he got home, he told David to go on over to Chaparro's and see what he could do to help the big man. Mark and Gunny walked down to see how Jim was coming with the guards. He was going over the basic mechanics of shooting with them. Each guard had brought his own weapon to practice with, and the rifles were all lined up on the folding table while the trainees listened to Jim's lecture. Mark noticed that there were a couple of Mini 14s, an SKS, and a Remington 742 in 30-06. These were all of the semi-autos. There were 7 lever guns and mostly 30-30s and 8 bolt actions. Mark could see what Gunny was concerned about. This was probably a good sampling of the weapons in the neighborhood. While the hunting rifles were powerful and accurate, they couldn't sustain any rate of fire. Once Gunny was satisfied that the class was going like he wanted, the two men walked back to Mark's to go to the store. Mark, Gunny, Abby, Alice, Lisa, and Susan loaded into Mark's truck and headed off to town. The line at the store was very long. They got there a little after 10, and by the time they all got out of the store, it was almost 3:30 in the afternoon. It was funny, Mark thought, to see people standing in line with sack lunches. By 2 o'clock, when his stomach was growling, he thought it was pretty smart. At least they'd brought some folding chairs to sit on while they waited. People in the line were talking mostly about how the water hadn't come back on until 8:30 instead of 7, like the radio had promised. That raised a red flag for Mark. When they had their groceries, they loaded them in the bed of the truck and headed over to Jerry Watson's house. When they arrived, Jerry asked Mark how he was doing after his shootout. Mark answered that he'd been so busy he hadn't had time to think about it. Then he introduced the women to Jerry. The gun dealer already knew Gunny. Mark explained that they were looking for some defensive rifles for the neighborhood that could be bought on a budget. He asked how many they needed. Mark looked at Gunny, and he said that they could use 20 or more, but if they could get at least 10, that would suffice. Jerry had them drive across the street to his father's house. He went into the house, and he and his father came back out and led their visitors to the backyard. The older Watson had a large metal storage building, and he unlocked a huge padlock on the door. Jerry slid the door back, and they went in. Along one wall was a 20-foot shipping container. Its doors were locked with the same kind of lock as was on the outside door. Mr. Watson unlocked it and then stepped back to let Jerry open them. Jerry took a flashlight and went inside. He brought out 2 rifles. One was an AK-47 and the other was an SKS. They were both covered in some kind of smelly grease. He explained about the rifles. We bought a bunch of these when they were cheap. The AK type is Romanian. The SKS was made in China. They both shoot the same cartridge. The AK takes removable magazines. I have 30s and a few 40s. And the SKS has a 10-round fixed mag and uses stripper clips. I've seen guys that were good with the SKS reload one faster than you can change a mag in the AK. Both of those designs are reliable and easy to learn. A lot of people don't care for the ergonomics on the AK, but it's a good weapon. The mags are cheap and so is the ammo. Mark looked at Gunny. What do you think? I've been shot at with both, the old Marine grinned. I don't really like shooting either one of them, but they just feel clunky to me, but I can tell you, they'll get the job done. How much? Mark asked Jerry. The SKSs are $250 each. The AKs are $450, and they come with 130-round mag. Extras are $10 each. Ammo is $250 for 1,000 rounds. It's steel cased, so you can't reload it. I also have some AR-15s, but they're going to be a lot more money. Mark would have preferred to buy the AKs. He and Jim had looked at the cash they had left last night. They each had just over half the money Todd had given them. They discussed it with the women and felt that they should only spend $5,000 on weapons and save the rest for food and other things. If he bought 10 AKs and just 2 extra mags for each one, that wouldn't leave enough money for ammo. He would have to go with the SKSs. He could buy 10 of them and 1,000 rounds for each rifle and still have some money left. He asked Jerry about the stripper clips. They come in packs of 20. Each rifle comes with 1 pack. After that, they're $3 a pack. How many SKSs do you have? Mark asked. Lots, Jerry answered with a grin. Give us 10 of them, plus 10 packs of stripper clips and 10 cases of ammo, Mark said. Say, Jerry, how would you trade with us for pre-65 silver coins? Gunny asked. Jerry looked at his father. Dad? 90% U.S. silver coins were going for $10 to $11 per face value before the burst, the gentleman explained. I don't know how much it would be worth now, maybe more, maybe less. I'd bet more, though. I think we could take it at $12 per dollar face. If you want to do it that way, let's see, $2,500 for the rifles, $2,500 for the ammo, and $30 for the stripper clips would be $5,030. Divided by 12 would be, call it, $419. Where are you going to get silver coins from, Gunny? Mark said. Don't you worry about that, Karate Man. Jerry, let Mark pay cash for the SKSs. I want to buy a few AKs with silver. How many? 3, plus 15 extra mags and another 3 cases of ammo. That would be, Jerry paused for a second, $187.50 in silver. That sounds good, but I'll have to go home and get the silver, Gunny said. We have to go to the shop for you to fill out the yellow forms on these. Why don't we load them up in your truck, go by the shop, then I'll go with you to your house to get the money and you can bring me back. That'll save you a trip. All right, Mark replied. I'd like to buy a rifle too, Susan stated. Jerry looked at her. Do you have a concealed handgun license? No, but I don't want to buy a handgun. I want a rifle. I'm sorry, I can't sell you one because I can't call you into the National Instant Check System. Mark and Gunny can buy these because they have CHLs and are exempt from the NIC's check, Jerry explained to her. Can Mark buy it for me? No, that's called a straw purchase and it's illegal. Oh, shit. What else can I do? As far as a gun, nothing, but I can sell you all the ammo you want. Why would I need ammo if I can't? A light turned on in Susan's eyes. If I could buy a rifle, what would you suggest? How much would you want to spend, the dealer asked. No more than I have to, but I want a good one, something easy to learn. Jerry went back into the container and came out with a hard case. He opened it up and pulled out a brand new AR-15. This is what I think you would be happy with. He went on to explain the benefits of the rifle. Susan looked over at Gunny and Mark. They each gave her a nod. How much? She asked. If Mark wanted it, I would sell it to him for $1,000. Extra 30-round mags would be $20 and ammo is $350 per case of 1,000 rounds. Can I buy the magazines? Yes. Well then, I want 5 magazines and 2,000 rounds of ammo for an AR. I also want to buy 4 cases of SKS ammo. She looked at Mark. Susan, do you have cash for that? He whispered. Did you forget where I work? When the lights went out, I withdrew every penny I had in the bank. I have plenty of cash, she smiled at Mark. You know, Jerry, I think I would like to have an AR. Could I buy that one and just buy 6 cases of ammo? I don't see why not. They loaded all of the rifles and ammos into the Ford and headed to the gun shop. Gunny watched the truck while Mark filled out the paperwork, and Jerry went in the back of the shop. He brought out a few old used M16 magazines that he gave to Susan. He then went back again and brought out a rifle to show to Mark. It was a Century L1A1. It's basically a cheap FAL, assembled from surplus parts. Some people call these Frankenfowls, Jerry explained as Mark looked it over. I know it isn't the quality of the one you lost, but the old boy I got it from said it shot okay. You still have all your mags, right? Jerry received a nod from Mark. They'll all work in this one, plus it comes with 3. If you want it, I'll sell it to you for $400. I'll take it. Thanks. Finished at the shop, they went home and paid Jerry. Mark asked him if he'd mind sticking around while they had their meeting. He explained to Jerry that he wanted to talk to him, but he had to be here for a while. Jerry agreed to wait. The news had been on when they got home, but Mark had missed it. Jess had listened, and Mark asked her if they said anything about the water not coming back on at 7 a.m. She shook her head and said that the water board was turning off the water from 6 tonight until 8 in the morning. She told Mark that the radio had reported more cities under martial law. One of them was the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. That got Mark's attention. The local news was mostly about the people who'd been arrested today for either wasting or hoarding water. She stated people were arriving for the meeting, and Mark got them started. He told everyone about the water not coming back on in town until late today, and the extended hours of pump maintenance again tonight. He suggested that if anyone really needed any groceries, they get them in the next day or 2. Manny said he'd be going to the closest Kroger tomorrow, and with the vehicles he had available, he should be able to take anyone who wanted to go. Mark introduced Jerry to everyone and reported that they'd bought 10 rifles for the guards who didn't have any to use. Chaparro reported the posts for the fence and for blocking off the entrance opposite the gate were all set, and that the men had started running the barbed wire. They expected to finish tomorrow. He then briefly outlined the security arrangements that had been discussed by the committee. The neighborhood voted on them, and they passed. George informed everyone that the repaired tiller had broken again, and that they'd only finished 2 of the gardens today. He told the group that, in talking with Chaparro, they had decided not to spend any time fixing it, so he could concentrate on the hitch for Mark's Jeep. The good news was that they did finish planting the corn in the plowed field, and that the committee had been able to get almost all of the seed that had been ordered thanks to some generous donations. One of the guards reported that there had been 3 groups of people, either walking or riding bicycles, past the gate today. All had been loaded down, but only one couple had stopped to ask for food. They had been given a little and sent on their way. Gunny announced that he'd have a short meeting with all of the guards after this one was done. No one had anything else to announce, so the meeting was adjourned. Mark told his family that they had to take Jerry home, but he wanted to have a meeting with everyone when he got back. Mark and Jerry talked about what had been happening in town. Their stories were similar, but each had a few things the other hadn't heard. Mark asked Jerry if they were having any problems in the neighborhood. They said they really hadn't seen anyone. Even though they lived closer to town than Mark, the road they were on didn't go anywhere. Mark asked Jerry what he thought of the setup they had at Silver Hills. Jerry said it looked like they could handle just about any situation. Mark smiled and then asked what his plans were if things got dicey. Jerry said they were all going to move into his father's house. Mark told his friend they were all welcome to come out and stay with them if they'd like. He told Jerry he didn't think 3 families would be able to stand up to a group of outlaws, even with the firepower they had. Jerry laughed. When I said we are all going to move to my dad's, I didn't mean just me and Tony. All of my aunts, uncles, and cousins are coming over too. That would make 29 adults and 14 kids. Will all of you fit in your dad's house? Better than we will in yours. Plus a couple of my uncles have travel trailers we could pull over with the Jeep. We also have some tents and stuff. We'll be fine. It'll be like a big family reunion. Mark nodded his head as he thought about his family in Waco. Well, if you need to, the offer stands for all 43 of you. That's very kind, Mark. Thank you. You're welcome, and thank you for helping us out. I know you could have made a lot more on those rifles if you wanted to. You've been a really good friend to us, as you have to us. Once Jerry was dropped off, Mark's trip home went quickly. He passed a few people walking away from town on the county road. He wondered how safe that was. Once the MZBs figured out people were leaving town, it would be really easy to set up an ambush point and rob them. When he got home, Ted was outside waiting for him. The professor asked if Mark could buy him a rifle like he did for Susan. He said he knew he could use one of the SKSs when he was on guard duty, but he wanted a rifle of his own. Mark told him that just an SKS and 1,000 rounds of ammo would be $500 in cash. Mark knew Ted didn't have any cash because he'd had to loan him the money for the parts to get the Trans Am running. I know Susan paid $1,850 for her rifle and ammo. How much would one of those AK rifles cost? For a rifle and 5 extra mags, it would be $500, and the ammo is $250 for 1,000 rounds. So an AK and 2,000 bullets would be $1,000, the professor asked. All right, here. SKS and 1,000 rounds, 500. AK, rifle, 5 extra mags, 500, whatever. All right. Would be $1,000. Okay, yes. And the parts you bought to fix my car, they were around $100, right? That's right, Mark answered, wondering where this was going. He didn't have to wait long for an answer. Ted reached into his pocket and started peeling $20 bills off of a big wad of money. When he'd counted to 1,100, he handed the bills to Mark. That's for the car parts, an AK, 5 extra mags, and 2,000 bullets. Mark was dumbfounded. The words that came out of his mouth were more instinct than a result of conscious thought. They're not bullets. They're called cartridges or rounds of ammunition. The bullets are the projectiles that are part of the cartridge that are propelled from the rifle. Okay, then, I want 2,000 cartridges with my rifle. Ted, I thought you didn't have any money. I didn't, but Susan and I came to an arrangement. I sold her half my car. I see, Mark said, even though he didn't. Either Jim or I will get it for you tomorrow. Thanks, and can we get on those shooting lessons ASAP? That's Jim's department, but I'm sure he'll be able to accommodate you. Good. Well then, I'll see you tomorrow. Ted left with a spring in his step. When Mark went into the house, Susan was there, and Jim was showing her how to operate the AR. She must have sensed she was interrupting something now that Mark was back, because she made Jim promise to help her sight it in tomorrow and left. Stop there. Ooh.